Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Tuesday, October 3rd, 2017 meeting of the Ann Arbor City Planning Commission. Commission public meetings are typically held on the first and third Tuesday of each month, and both of these meetings provide opportunities for the public to address the commission. We certainly encourage all persons to participate in public meetings, and anyone requiring special accommodations like sign language or any other reasonable accommodations can contact the clerk's office at 734-794-6140 at least 2 days in advance. Commission packets are available on the Legislative Information Center on the City Clerk's webpage or on the first floor of City Hall on the Friday before the meeting. And you can subscribe to a free service Gov delivery by accessing the city's website and clicking on the subscribe to updates envelope on the home page. We have a call to order, and we'll start now with a roll call.
Thank you. Commissioner Ackerman? Here. Briggs?
Here.
Klein?
Here.
Gibb Randall? Here. Mills? Absent. Milstein? Here. Trudeau? Absent. Weatherby?
Here.
And Woods? Absent. Okay, you do have a quorum.
We do have a quorum. We have 6. The next item on our agenda is to approve the agenda. And if I can have Commissioner Ackerman first and second by Commissioner Milstein. Any discussion on the agenda? All in favor of the agenda as printed, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes, that appears to be everybody. That passes. Our next item, item 4, is introductions, and we don't have any this evening that I'm aware of.
No, sir.
So we'll go on to minutes of the previous meeting, which we also don't have this evening, which takes us to item 6, reports from city administration, city council, planning manager, planning commission officers and committees, and written communications and petitions. And as always, we will start with city council. Commissioner Ackerman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's been quieter 2 weeks on the planning side of things. But last night, the Lower Town property at 1140 Broadway went through the rezoning at first reading. This is a rezoning from PUD to C1AR. This is the vacant 6.4 acres at the corner of Maiden Lane and Broadway, which has gotten quite a bit of public attention. The next reading of the rezoning will be on November 9th, and along with that will come its site plan and brownfield plan. So the public will have 3 opportunities to speak on the development.
Wonderful. I'm sure they will be very engaged. Planning manager is not here tonight, but Mr. Kowalski is.
I'm the
standing
acting
in.
planning manager.
Yes.
Couple of reports. Land division, one notice of a land division, 1884 Miller, which is one single lot right now, 0.9 acre parcel. It'll be divided into 4 parcels, zoned R1D.
Those come later.
The public hearings?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
that'll be later.
well, that's the report for the land division. We'll cover the rest in a little bit.
Okay. Any report out from planning commission officers or committees? Nothing? Nothing? I'll just make a note that at the ORC, that's Ordinance Revision Committee meeting last Tuesday, the small group that was there discussed further transit-oriented development and gave some input to staff who are in the process of coming up with some draft ordinance and where that might apply, including some potential, I would say, I guess, a test or a study area that we could use to first study that. So I think we didn't set a timetable, but I think this fall they'll be coming back to us with some more information, more as a work session to the entire group, and then before we bring it back before public hearing.
And if I could add to that, I think our
Please.
work plan actually puts March of next year as a deadline for us to have public hearings.
Thank you. Item 60, we have some written communications in your packet on, I think they are generally applicable to one of the petitions tonight. I encourage you to read through those. Which brings us to item 7, which is our first opportunity for audience participation. This is a chance that members of the audience here have to address the commission on any item at all that is not listed as a public hearing under regular business. So the 2 items that are there are not fair game for this first opportunity, but if you would like to speak about anything else, you may approach the podium, state your name and address for the record, and speak for up to 3 minutes on any item that's not listed as a public hearing. Please.
I would assume that what I have to say is probably not listed, and I'll carry on, and if it is, then you can correct me and stop me.
Okay.
I came before the city council when they were first trying to figure out where to place the Delana Center. and advised, or my opinion was that it should be located downtown, so that people of need would be located right in our presence, and we could interact with them and know their needs on a very good basis. I also have a friend who lives at Miller Manor, and I understand that that's under Avalon, and Avalon is a reputable organization that's trying to help out the homeless here in town. And I know internationally that the habitual use of narcotics and other drugs and how to approach that as a community in a healing way is very important to our culture and our city. And to know that Miller Manor hands out crack pipes and needles to people who have those needs also makes it a location in which there's a lot of illegal activity going on. And it came to my awareness from a friend who was living there last night that there's a lot more than is being dealt with by law enforcement. But I also want to say that as we go forward in this, the planning council, when we lost the Y, and I was one of the proponents to purchase the Y before it was torn down, was actually a location where there was adequate housing for people in need, and it was also a location where resources could be centralized, as it is in the Delana Center, to serve the community. I just wanted to bring that to your awareness, that this is, I hear nationally, and I'm now starting to hear it in Ann Arbor, that there's heroin and opiate problems that are coming up in our community. We're starting to see that reflected in our community, and I want to bring that to your awareness so that we can take further action to accommodate the needs of the community as we move forward with the modern times of trying to deal with this with a new perspective. But we also have the needs of community to support that. And so I just wanted to bring that to your awareness, that those type of things do exist. They are growing in town here. And as well as we're trying to develop, we also need to take into the fact that there are people of special needs in our community that we also need to not leave in the cold. And I know it's a very difficult question because as Avalon deals with federal contracts, they also deal with state contracts, they deal with city contracts. Washtenaw County may handle the housing and be payees for some of the people at Miller Manor. And the city is sort of trying to help out at the same time. So we're really trying to work on this difficulty from a multidimensional approach, but I just feel it's not working.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks. Thank you. Anyone else want to address the commission at this time? Okay, seeing no one, I'm going to go on to the next item, which are public hearings scheduled for the next business meeting.
Okay, there we go. Midas Muffler, which is a site plan for city council approval, that's 3180 Washtenaw Avenue. The cottages at Barton Green, that is also a site plan for city council approval. There's a proposed amendments to chapter 55, the regulations concerning the use of medical marijuana. That would be an ordinance change for city council approval. And 2410 Newport Road, it is a annexation and zoning for a single-family house. Those will be scheduled for your next meeting, October 17th.
Have that to look forward to. Thank you. And item 9, unfinished business. We don't have any this evening, so that'll take us to item 10, which is our regular business. These are each item will start with a staff report, followed by a public hearing, and then commission discussion. If an item is tabled, it will most likely be rescheduled to a future date, and you can be notified about that if you sign up, in particular on the sheet that's on the podium here with your email address. Again, the public hearings that occur with each of these items, you can speak for up to 3 minutes unless you are the either the petitioner or a registered leader of a community group, in which case you can have up to 5 minutes. Our first item, item 10A, is the Rainbow Child Care Center special exception use for Planning Commission approval and site plan for City Council approval. Are you doing the staff report?
I'll be
You're
doing
doing
everything
everything
today.
tonight. Wow.
Yep. It's correct. Okay, thank you. Again, Rainbow Child Care Plan, oh, it's not a plan project, actually. It's just a site plan for city council approval. Here you can see the subject site, kind of a zoom out aerial there. It's north of Plymouth Road near the corner of Blewett and Nixon. Here's a zoom in. It shows obviously the existing church that will be demolished as well as the existing parking lot. To the right is Clague School, as well as kind of directly adjacent to it to the north is Clague Drive that obviously services a school in the parking lot. A zoning map. Here you can see that subject parcel is zoned R1C, which is a single-family zoning. The daycare is allowed as a special exception use in the single-family zoning district. Here, didn't come out as well on the PowerPoint show, but this is a survey of the existing conditions in the center. This little pointer is working here. You can see this is the existing church building. Again, that will obviously be removed. There's a little enclosed play area here with a fence. And you can obviously see of note the parking, which I'll get to in a couple of pictures here. You can see the parking is pretty much the whole length of the Clague Drive, as well as along the front, opposite that, obviously near the front of the existing church. Here's a picture taken from Nixon Road. This is looking directly east. The church is the building kind of in the center of the picture. You can see the adjacent residential subdivision directly to the, that would be the south. So here's another picture taken kind of from the sidewalk along Nixon Road, showing the existing church to the left, and kind of right down the property line there, you can see there's some trees and the retaining wall that kind of goes directly along the property. Here's a photograph showing the parking lot. You can see there's, obviously the building and parking lot was built before current code, so there's no landscaping island or stormwater detention currently on the site. To the right of this picture is Clague Drive. Okay, so what their petitioner is here tonight is proposing a 10,780 square foot child care facility. As I mentioned, they will be demolishing the existing church structure on there. This facility will have play areas for the children, obviously, on both sides of it, kind of near the front of Nixon Road. Nixon Road is on the left of this. And then also on the opposite side, the east, there will be a play area adjacent to it as well. So there will, so for stormwater management, there's, as I said before, there's currently no stormwater management on the site. It pretty much does sheet flow directly off as far as the parking lot and the Clague Drive and onto Nixon. Petitioner is obviously required to install a stormwater detention system. That would be located here in kind of the front open space in between the daycare facility and Nixon Road. Natural features, there are 3 landmark trees on the site. 2 of them will be removed for construction of the building or the required site detention area. Of course, the landmark trees will be mitigated as required by city code. The petitioner is actually planning an excess of trees, particularly along, oops, sorry, let me go back one more slide here. You can see on this slide towards the bottom, the south side of the site, there's, which would be required a conflicting land use buffer. However, the trees they've planted do exceed that, and they are all of the evergreen variety to kind of help provide a screen for the adjacent neighbors. So we'll go through some, there's also, maybe it's a little more visible on this project. They are going to be installing a sidewalk linkage directly to Nixon Road. That would be on the south side of Clague Drive here. And then you can see it links up directly with a crosswalk to the front entrance. The parking lot is going to be, as I mentioned, reworked to comply with current codes, landscaping islands, as well as bioretention islands that will be installed as well. Here's kind of a SketchUp, a colored SketchUp of the proposed elevations. And then some kind of black and white elevations as well. So at this time, staff is recommending approval of the special exception use and the corresponding site plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kowalski. So I will now open the public hearing on this item. If you'd like to address the commission on this item, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Jeremy Kennedy, Paris, Burling, Egan, and Daniels on behalf of the Homeowners Association. Address is 24 Frank Lloyd Wright Drive, Ann Arbor, 48103. I'm here on behalf of the Nadia Court Homeowners Association, which are the property owners directly south of the proposed Rainbow. We have 10 homeowners who are members of the association, 9 of them have signed a petition. Permission, can I hand a copy out to the commissioners?
Sure.
Expressing what their concerns are about this proposal. The 10th homeowner was unable to be reached prior to over the weekend. But they do have a number of concerns. They've brought these up with the petitioner before, and they don't feel like they've been adequately addressed. And all 9 of the homeowners that are signed the petition do oppose this project. First of all, the number of students that the Rainbow Child Care Center is proposing is, they've proposed to seek licensing for up to 130 children. This would make it one of, if not the largest, child care centers in Washtenaw County that's not affiliated with the public schools or the University of Michigan. The nearby Gretchen's House, which has been mentioned in the petitioner's application, serves only 50 children on a daily basis, as the homeowners, per the homeowners association. And they would ask that the number of students be considered to be reduced. The second concern they have is traffic. Traffic in the area of Nixon, Blewett, and Clague Roads is significant, and we believe that that there will be a significant increase to traffic in the area as a result of this development. It's already congested, there's considerable amount of noise, and they have concerns with that, and they don't believe those have been adequately addressed. Noise and privacy is an issue for them. They believe that there is significant noise and privacy concerns, not only during construction, but after, as the center becomes operational. What we are essentially doing here is taking a property that currently sees use approximately 1 day a week and taking that and converting it to a full commercial use. It's a significant change, and it is a significant increase in the noise and traffic and a significant impact on the homeowner association residents' privacy. The building that has been proposed, the current church is on average 10 feet tall. The roof line that's being proposed is greater than 25 feet. Again, significant change in the silhouette of the area, and quite tall for a one-story building. This has been brought up with the petitioner and to no avail. The green area is another concern. They asked that it be preserved, with potentially reducing the number of parking spaces. The proposal currently, I believe, calls for 38, and 24 is the minimum required. That could be reduced to increase the green space, potentially keep one of the landmark trees that I think is an area of concern, and that is. Additionally, there are concerns with the property values in the area. Again, you're going from a 1 day a week church to essentially a commercial use that operates on a daily basis. And we have not contacted an appraiser about that, but we do believe that that will have an impact on the property value of the homeowners. And one of the criteria that this commission has to look at is whether or not the special use will be detrimental to the use, the peaceful use, enjoyment, economic value, and development of the neighboring property owners. As I said, the Nadia Court Homeowners Association are the 10 immediately adjacent neighbors to the south. They believe that there will be a significantly detrimental impact on their property and their ability to use that property. And they would ask that the proposal be modified or denied for those reasons. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the commission on this item?
So my name is James Moon, and my address is 2611 Nadia Court. I'm one of the homeowners Mr. Kennedy mentioned. I have some handouts. Is it okay if I hand them out?
Okay. Okay.
So in 2013, I moved into Nadia Court because it's a secluded area, very quiet, and it's a beautiful landscaping. We are adjacent to Clegg Middle School. They only have recess 30 minutes a day, so which is tolerable. But if we have a childcare center Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 or 8 to 6 p.m., it'll be constant noise in the backyard. So as one of the homeowners on Nadia Court, my family is against it. I know 9 of us are against this current plan as well. And another issue that was brought up is the current height of the church. The first picture that I handed out is the current church. The north side is only 10 feet high, and the southern tip is 20 feet high or so. But what they're proposing, as you saw in the diagram, is 20 feet or 30 feet high roof line for one-story building, which doesn't make much sense. If they just need a one-story building, I think 12 feet high roof line will be sufficient. I think they are planning to put some appliances on the mezzanine area, but if they want to do that, maybe they can raise a southern tip as in the current structure to put appliances there and reduce the impact on the environment. Another concern I have is a landmarked tree right in the center of the playground area, and they are proposing to remove that. I put pictures, the second picture on the bottom. This is beautiful mulberry tree that's about 40 feet high, as big as my house, even bigger than some of our houses. It's a beautiful tree. I'd like them to consider preserving the tree and saving the landmark tree. Maybe they can put the playgrounds further up north, away from the tree, or north of the building structure, so that the playground areas are away from the southern, the neighbor court, Nadia Court houses, so that that mitigates the noise issues, privacy concerns as well as saving that beautiful tree. And the impact on the traffic will be huge. We have a hard time making left turn when we go out Nadia Court onto Nixon in the morning. Having 130 students will definitely increase the traffic in the area, so I'd like to ask the commission to reconsider this plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Wen Jin. I live on Nadia Court, so my house is right behind the church. Besides the concern they just addressed, another concern is about the safety of the kids. The road is the main entrance to the Clegg Middle School. So in the rush hour, there'll be a lot of kids coming out, just walk to their home. And a lot of kids will run in after school. So if there is a lot of cars come in and come out at the same time, it will put a big danger to the kids, to the middle school kids, and also the Thurston kids too. So I would like the community to consider the plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, did you want her name and address? Is that
Yes,
okay,
for the record,
Teresa
please.
Vizentainer, and I'm 2813 Renfrew. I'm actually at the corner of Renfrew and Blewett, so I'm right across from the Nadia courthouses. Been there 28 years. So I'm just really opposed to this, and I guess my question to you is, what recourse do we have to really fight this, number one? And because I went to the meeting at Starbucks where the developer was there and the regional director of the Rainbow Center also, I just told him point blank, the traffic in the past 5 years is, you approved the Toll Brothers north of Nixon. The roundabout's really nice. I did want to comment on that at Duvarn and Green. They did a really nice job, and they did it in a timely fashion, so it's so much better. But it's just crazy there now. I've been there this long when Traver Village was still part of the Nixon farm. But it's Nixon, the road wasn't built for the traffic that's on it right now. I know there's future proposals for that corridor to change with many roundabouts. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. Are any of you familiar with the proposals of that? Okay, so anyway, it's traffic, it's noise, it's really, really loud now. And the safety too is what she's addressing. I feel like even Clegg, there's a problem. People are parking on both sides of the street on Blewett. That should be policed. Kids are almost, I don't know, people are almost hitting me because they're parking where the signs say no parking or standing. And my neighbor's daughter was just hit recently at Thurston. And so, anyway, I agree with the young woman who was talking about, it's very busy there, so it could be it's not ideal, I guess, for young kids. But, so, what could I ask how people go about when they would like you to deny the proposal? The steps that are taken to do that? I mean, do you?
It's not in the purview of the commission to advise community groups about opposing petitions, especially at the public hearing.
Oh, okay.
My suggestion would be, obviously, you've talked with neighbors. Sounds like at least one group's engaged an attorney. You can also talk with your council person.
Okay.
Those would be good steps in terms of
So
understanding.
neighbors, attorney, and
Yeah.
councilman.
And you can, of course, contact city staff that are involved in planning, like Mr. Kowalski
Okay,
here.
so I could contact you?
Yes,
to
I
go
can
about
inform you
the-
on some of the next steps of where,
Oh,
depending on
okay.
what happens tonight, you can inform me.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the commission on this item?
Is that pertaining for us?
Yes.
as well?
Yep, you as well, yep.
I'll say unless anyone else would like to go. So, my name is Reed Fenton. I'm with 814 Development. We are the developers for Rainbow. Rainbow Childcare is actually my family's company, started in New Jersey and now based in Troy, Michigan. They've been operating childcare centers for over 35 years now. As I mentioned, I do lead the development for Rainbow across the country as we try to expand our footprint. And so I just wanted to, address all of the issues that have been brought up and inform you on how we have addressed them, as I do feel that we have adequately addressed the concerns and are trying to walk the fine balance of making sure we meet requirements, making sure that we maintain enough parking, but also enough green space. And so I do have a list. I wrote down most of the major objections, as well as collected the email list that we have gathered from the community members. I will start by saying that we did host a community meeting just to address these concerns up front. That was back in May in Starbucks, as was referenced. It was myself and Hugh McBride, who is the Chief Marketing Officer for Rainbow and generally helps out with a lot of community events. And so these did all come up way back then, and we've been working with the city to try and address them properly and make sure that, again, we can please the citizens as well as the tenant to make sure the basic operational needs are met. So I wanted to first start with traffic. Obviously, that came up, and that's been a big concern the whole time. We did complete a traffic study, which said that it would be minimal impact. That being said, if you think about this logically, 90% of our customers come from within 2 miles. And so if someone's going to the elementary school or the middle school, chances are they have multiple children, and they're already making the trip there anyway. In addition to that, we position ourselves on a commuter road. So again, we're trying to capture the traffic that is already going, to and from that area. So although there are other developments going on in there that are causing the traffic, obviously that is unfortunate for the citizens that have been there, but as requested, we did complete the traffic study, which said it'll be a very minimal impact. The next thing to address would be the too many students. This is our prototype building. It's been designed operationally for safety and for traditional protocol within the operations. Although it is licensed to 130 kids, I will point out that Gretchen's House is licensed for 117 kids, not 50. That can be found on LARA, which is the governing body, and there are constant inspections of each of the child care across the state. So typically, a Rainbow does not operate at capacity. It's actually basically impossible. It's measured on what we call FTEs, which is full-time enrollment. Because there are so many part-time students, whether they come in just for the mornings or There are certain after-school programs which would students would walk over. We would expect this to be more like 90 students, and that would be if it's operating at a high capacity. And so, although it is challenging to measure, I don't think that the comparison of 50 students to 130 is accurate of what this would actually represent here. In regards to noise and privacy, I think we've gone above and beyond to try and address that. We pulled the playgrounds all the way up to the sides as far as we could. We cannot put the playground in front of the building. That is definitely a safety hazard. The way the building is designed, we have sidewalks going around the entire building, and we like to keep the playground, like I said, from the front back, and that's due to security reasons. Just to get into the building, there's a two-step security program in which you can enter the building, and then you have to have either a passcode or buzz the director to let you through. And so that is consistent with all of the fencing around there. There is no way in. Obviously, that's the best we can do, is you could always get over the fence, but that is protocol to try and, again, keep the children safe. And we thought bringing it to the side would be nice for the neighbors so that they're not directly playing behind their home. In addition to that, you see the enormous amount of landscaping we put in there. Obviously, that helps with not just noise, but visibility to try and screen the building as much as possible. Let's see. And beyond that, going down to the height of the building. So as you mentioned, the church does get to a point in which it's 20 feet tall. Our building is about 25 feet tall with roof. That is because a lot of our major appliances or utilities are actually in the attic or the mezzanine. We do that because we can't have them down in a utility room or somewhere where the kids can potentially have access to it. It's really a safety and operational thing that it's a small mezzanine that's upstairs that just holds most of the different HVAC units and things of that nature. So that is why the building is, I guess, the height that it is.
Thank you. That was your time.
Okay.
I'm sure you'd be available for questions from the commission.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Anyone else want to address the commission on this item? Okay, seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing and start by reading the motion prior to commission debate. And there's actually two motions. So the first motion is for the site plan, which will go to city council for council approval. And the second motion is for the special exception use, which does not go to council, but it is a decision made by the commission. I will note that we're required that special exception use requires 6 affirmative votes, and there are 6 of us here tonight. So the first motion reads, the Ann Arbor City Planning Commission hereby recommends that the mayor and city council approve the Rainbow Child Care Site Plan. And the second motion reads, the Ann Arbor City Planning Commission, after hearing all interested persons and reviewing all relevant information, finds the petition to substantially meet the standards in Chapter 55 zoning ordinance, Section 5:104, special exceptions, and therefore approves the Rainbow Child Care special exception use for the maximum of 130 children. Can I have Commissioner move these? Commissioner Briggs, followed by Commissioner Gibrandl. And now there's commission discussion. And Commissioner Ackerman.
As a point of order, do we vote on each motion separately or as an item?
We could take them together or separately. Is
The
there
site plan, I feel,
opinion?
becomes irrelevant without the special exemption use.
That would be correct. It wouldn't go very far. Do we want to take these as 2 separate votes, or?
I'll defer to you. I mean, it's the appropriateness of using single-family residential for the use of I'll defer to you.
I mean, I think either way in the discussion, I think it makes sense to structure the discussion around the appropriateness of the special exception use and then site plan issues, whether or not we vote that way or not. We can let's take the motions separately, and we'll start with the second motion first, since
Okay.
that's the special exception use. Does that make sense? Okay. Commissioner Ackerman, did you want to lead in on that?
Yeah. Inevitably, I'll lead to site plan questions as well. But
I'm sure you will,
All right.
as we all.
So I guess, so the maximum height of the R1C district is 30 feet, and we're seeing a max of 27 in this potential development. Do you have a height at the southernmost edge of the building?
At the eve line, is that what you're asking for?
I'm sure it is. Thank you, Chair Architect.
Where the roof meets the, yeah.
Well, the maximum height, they've actually measured the height to the maximum, the total height, 30 feet, is typically done to the midpoint of an elevation. They measured it to the top part here, but I don't know it off the top of my head, or the engineer maybe, or the petitioner. It's hard to read on the graph right here. I can look it up.
If you could actu-
And I would note that that's the top of the bell tower, not the top of the roof, so it's probably closer to 25.
That's correct, and typically, height is, again, measured to the midpoint of the
Of a
elevation.
sloping roof,
This
yeah.
is of a sloping roof, correct. They measure it to the top of that cupola feature, because it's the tallest peak.
And given that the neighbors to the south on Nadia Court are also in the R1C district, do we have a sense of how tall those houses are?
Well, they're two-story houses, so probably pretty similar, I would imagine. Let's see if we can look back on the photos, if we can.
The photos that handed out show
Yeah.
a two-story with a pitched roof.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably, I
So
don't
we're
know.
looking
the-
north of 20.
Yes, at least. I mean, they're two-story houses with peaked roof.
So the impact to the streetscape in the surrounding neighborhood isn't too dissimilar from the homes in terms of the mass and scale of the building from the homes to the south. I guess moving to traffic, studies as of now, are they taking projections from Nixon Farm into account?
I believe our traffic engineer did look at it when she had asked me some questions relevant to the Nixon Farms. I can't say for sure that was included though, however. But they did provide updated data, which in theory would include our model data that was based on the Nixon Farms. But I don't know that for sure.
Depending what happens tonight, I think that would be valuable information
If it
for a staff
proceeds?
report, yeah.
Correct, thank you.
Or, so the Nixon Farm projections are included in the traffic study? Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And do we have a sense of what the traffic impact of the church is currently? I heard,
I don't. I mean, the church has been vacant for a little while,
oh,
but
got it, understood.
I don't know how often they had services.
Only on Sunday morning.
Only on Sunday
Okay.
mornings? Okay, and then I guess to the petitioner, with respect to your license, if you're only anticipating a peak of 90 students at a given time, at your, most efficient capacity, why seek the larger license? Could you actually, I'm sorry, so it's actually being televised, so the folks at home, would you mind coming
Yeah,
up?
please,
Thank you.
if you can step
And
up
for
to the
record.
microphone for response.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No problem.
Yeah, so as I was mentioning with the licensing as a whole, that's the number of enrolled students. And so you have a mixture of part-time and full-time students, and it's a challenging operational balance. And so you'll never hit 130 students at one time, just because there's kids coming in and out. And so
Understood.
that's why the license capacity is going to be higher than what you're actually running at.
Got it.
Yeah, so I'll leave it at that.
And in terms of the impact to the neighborhood and kind of like uses in the area, I'm sure when you did a market study, do you have a sense of how much childcare and after-school care there is in the area? And do you have
Not a ton.
radius?
There's actually a
Okay.
high demand. So Rainbow had looked at acquiring Gretchen's house quite a while ago, and that's where they've been full at every location everywhere. So there's clearly a huge demand here. And as far as the target demographics for Rainbow, it's perfect, and a lot of working families that need childcare.
Thank you.
Anything's better.
I'm all set for now.
Okay. Other commission discussion? Commissioner Gibrandl.
Could the petitioner has summarized typical drop-off and pickup times in terms of, what you see pattern-wise? I know middle school tends to get out right after 3, and starts around 8. And so those are
Yeah, there would be some crossover. Rainbow opens at 6:30 and closes at 6:30. And so typically, they get there a bit earlier, and then I'd say from 6:30 to 9 is when they're busy. And so you would expect, I don't know, pending who comes in the morning, if that is 50 to 100 cars, and then similar in the afternoon, probably starting around 3 to 4, and then going all the way to 6:30. So spreading that out, it's, again, not really a dramatic impact. It's a car every couple of minutes.
So not quite the same as school traffic in terms of everybody getting out at the same time, everybody coming in at the same time?
Correct. Yeah, it's pretty spread out over the 3 hours, and that's what we found. We've done traffic studies across the country, and they consistently show the peak hours have spread out over 2 to 3 hours, not all at once. And on top of that, again, getting back to the actual number of students in comparison to an elementary or middle school, you're talking about a fraction of the students.
Commissioner Weatherby?
I have some questions. So, the fencing, I can't quite tell on these, like, what will the fencing look like in the, I mean, I see the little squares, are those little areas, or?
I can walk you through it.
Okay.
It's kind of confusing. So obviously, if we want to start on the southern border here, all those little circles with the dots are the trees.
Right.
Just inside of that, there's the hash line, which would be the fencing.
Okay,
The fencing is a 5-foot tall chain link fence that's basically see-through. And then the squares that you're referring to are actually, they're called a pour in place, and so it's the poured rubber that's soft so that there's no risk of falling or getting hurt. And so that goes underneath the play structures, and then the remainder of the playground will all be grass.
okay. And then have you thought about solid fencing or any sort of, and I don't know what the city regulations, just a chain link fence. I mean, I realize the people behind them won't be able to see through those trees too much, but a chain link fence isn't very attractive.
Right, I guess that it comes off as if it's not, it's got like a rubber black coating on it, so it looks good. And the reason we don't do privacy fences is, if you've been in a playground with a privacy fence, it's very constricting, and it makes it feel like you're still inside almost. And so we want the kids to be out and in the environment and actually be exposed here so that it's not like they're still trapped inside. And so that's an operational thing that Rainbow pushes across the country, wherever we are, to make sure that it is, lots of landscaping around there, but they are outside, not still in a little fenced-in area.
Okay, thank you. And I also had a question about bike parking. So one of the things that I do think about this location is it is a great place for people to come and bring their kids on their bikes, which I think people actually will do. But it looked like there wasn't a lot of bike parking, and I think also people who work here might use their bikes. And I know if you're bringing kids on a bike, it's not your standard little, small,
Right.
you're gonna have a,
I say, I know we have covered bike parking that does meet the requirements. That's one where if you would request additional, pending how it would affect the site plan, we could be open for that. Obviously, we want to be as intertwined with the community as possible, so if that's,
because it looked from here, I mean, is it really just 2 spaces?
It's actually 4 because there's 2 hoops, so but still, and 2 is the requirement only. They are providing 4, they are covered, but they're in, I think it's in this area right here.
Because if I read it correctly, you don't allow people to just drop off the kids, right?
Correct.
They have to park, come in.
Correct.
Whether they're on a bike or in a car.
Yep, or no matter what, you have to walk your child in, get them through the security doors, leave them with staff, and then you exit.
Okay, so that might be something that I'd be interested to see, is some more bike parking there.
I mean, that could be something that, again, depending on where it goes tonight, we could work with the petitioner to add some extra spaces. I mean, do you have a?
Before site plan approval at council.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, if it goes forward, obviously, special exception use is here tonight, but we could work with, if it's approved, we could work with the petitioner to add some additional bicycle parking in a location that wouldn't affect any landscaping or anything else
Right.
like that before the petition would go to council for approval.
Right. I might defer to parents who ride bikes on this, on what might be appropriate, but,
Commissioner Gibrandal.
Yeah, adding to that, as somebody who did that all the way through, I agree that the space is extra long because you are often carrying the kid behind you. And this is maybe something that's a little bit different about Ann Arbor than other places because there's a lot of biking here and there's a bike pathway all along, there's a pathway and a bike lane all along Plymouth Road. And the city is only becoming more and more bike-oriented. So this may be one of those, it's not one size fits all. I know this is like your standard thing, but I think that, and I know this, the city has requirements around some of these things, but I think that in some ways the child care center is a little bit different because I think you're going to be surprised.
Well, and on an issue like this is one where there's no operational compromises here. It's simply to address the community. So we'll be more than willing to work with staff to get an adequate number of bike spaces that you'd like to see.
Yeah, that would be great. And then the length, I think
Yeah.
you might just have to kind of figure
With
that
the
one.
trailers, yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep,
Because
that's a
that'll be.
great point, actually. I can definitely work with them to accommodate that if it goes forward.
And then I just had one more comment. And I know it's not very helpful when we're not neighbors, talking to the neighbors, because I know how that feels. But I actually think a daycare, especially a daycare where you could have differing hours is actually a good thing for a house and for a neighborhood. I don't think it would be something, I think the people who would want to buy a house there, that would probably be seen as an advantage. It's tricky, the parking is, and the traffic is tricky, but I grew up close to that area, and when the McDonald's at Nixon and Plymouth was a farm stand, and the houses on Nadia Court didn't exist, and so it's hard for me to say, okay, now we're gonna stop. This seems to be like a pretty reasonable use for me in a neighborhood. It's not a, it's not a bar, it's not something that, I think this might be something that's good in this neighborhood, so.
Commissioner Milstein?
Question for staff. In what other zoning districts would a daycare center like this be allowed?
Good question. Pretty much all, I mean, they're allowed in commercial districts, they're allowed in office districts. By right, I shouldn't say by right, but without special exception use. And they're available in all the residential districts with a special exception use. So really, the only ones they're not allowed in, I think, would probably be industrial districts, and they're also allowed downtown. So a wide variety of zoning districts.
Okay, thank you. So my concern is, so I'm a little bit torn on this, and part of the reason why I'm torn on it is because I think when the code was initially written to allow for a special use exemption for residential areas, I don't think anyone was ever thinking that childcare centers would get to this size. And so that's where I'm a little bit torn, where I could agree, yes, childcare centers belong in neighborhoods, but also the childcare centers of today it's a totally different business model from when this code was written. So that's where I'm torn on making that decision. I'm also a little hesitant to vote either way on this because there are 6 of us and there needs to be 6 affirmative votes. And so I do want to hear additional discussion to see how other people feel about it. But my inclination would be to postpone until we have more members here so that it's not just the one lone person that's denying this. But I'm open to more dialogue on this issue.
One comment, just, I think the comment about this wouldn't have been foreseen when the code was written probably is true for most of the developments we see. So I don't know that I'd single out this particular use for that in terms of the size or scale of developments. Commissioner Briggs?
So with regards to those last comments, I agree. I sort of grappled with that as well. I think given the proximity, given the location on Nixon, and the staff's responses to a lot of this. I think that, and sort of the petitioner's own study showing that most of their customers come within 2 miles. I actually think that this is something that potentially, those kids are going someplace to daycare, and so there may be a need, it sounds like there is a need for more childcare on this side of town. My own personal preference isn't for this large scale, but I know it is for a lot of folks. Folks have different desires in terms of what they're looking for, and so I think that we may actually see it it's unclear what the impacts are going to be in traffic in terms of those holistically for our city. I do agree with the desire to see the bike parking increase. The questions that I have are regarding the landmark trees, and so I don't know if staff could kind of walk us through that, and then I have some questions for the petitioner about specific removal.
The 2 landmark trees that are being removed, I think one is in this area here, and I don't know if is it down further? And over here, where the stormwater is? I can look on the plan really quick there. Actually, if you want to, it's right there, I believe it looks like it's about right here.
Okay.
For the stormwater detention. And then the other one's, I think, number 12, I believe, which
Right
is,
there.
yep, which is 12, which is right. 12 looks like it's right about here.
In the building?
So, well, this is, yeah, I mean, where the building is proposed to be. The other one is the stormwater detention area right here.
Okay, so I'm confused because the petitioner's response, if I can find that, is to Mr. Moon's questions regarding preserving a large tree. Your response, I'm just going to read it so that others can hear it in the audience. We are preserving and saving as many trees as we can. We value the environment, would like to retain this tree. That being said, we cannot make the decision at the expense of the safety of our children. There are simply too many branches and sharp sticks that could be used by a child to harm oneself or others. We've tried this in the past, but have realized it to be an operational hazard. I won't continue on, but, so it sounded like maybe one was in the playground, and that's why
Yeah,
it was
it's
being
referring to, there's one in the eastern playground.
But, sorry to interrupt, but that's actually not a landmark tree, though. It's,
Okay.
it's the mulberry, so there was a little,
Right.
sorry to interrupt, but I know
No,
there's a
that's- I
confusion in
appreciate that.
terminology.
Okay, so
It's
that was not a
actually
landmark tree.
It's a mulberry, it's a multi-stem mulberry, but it's not a landmark. It is a very big tree, but it's not a landmark.
Tree.
So, sorry to jump in.
No, I appreciate
But I
that.
figured,
That's
Yeah.
actually important. Okay. That changes the nature of my question then. I am surprised a little bit by your response earlier in terms of trying to create an environment that is, a natural environment for kids to play in, and yet removing a very, well, not landmark tree, a nice tree that would provide shade and also provides a lot of nice screening for the neighbors. I don't see this as an operational hazard. I see it as a operational benefit. And I think I'd be, even though this is not a landmark tree, I'd be curious to hear your
Yeah,
response on
sure.
that.
I guess one thing generally is shrubs, trees, bushes inside of the fencing has been a hazard because kids can use just about anything to get in trouble, swallow, whatever it may be. And so typically, we like to surround them with as much greenery as possible, but not have them have direct access. And with something this large, if they're climbing it and if they fall, there's no soft cushion around the bottom so they could get hurt. It's one where we have made exceptions elsewhere. We can make an exception with this. It just requires additional maintenance in which you trim the tree all the way up so there are no limbs that can be grabbed, broken, used, up to about 5 feet. So if that, again, is a deal breaker to make this work, then absolutely, I will work with operations to make sure that they have the protocol in place to make sure it's properly trimmed and there's no harmful objects near that.
Okay. So it sounds like that is something that, while is a relatively small request that the neighbors are making that would help with screening and not changing the environment as drastically as what they've been seeing out of their windows. And so if that's something that you think you could accommodate, it sounds like that would be something that would be a positive benefit to the neighborhood. While
Yeah.
some of the other ones that might be much more challenging to
That-
accommodate.
That's something that, obviously, this whole thing is a balancing act, again, on pleasing the neighborhood and making sure it works operationally, as well as, meeting all different requirements. And so, little things like a bike rack or additional maintenance for a tree, we can make those work. You had mentioned the size of the building. At this point, it's the national standard of childcare as a whole. No operator can perform in a smaller size. It simply doesn't work for the business model. And so, you'll note that although it is bigger than you would like, it's not dramatically different than the church. The roof height is slightly taller, and it's 2,000 to 3,000 square feet bigger. But in the end, we are bringing this entire site up from a vacant church to a building that meets all the standards of Ann Arbor, from stormwater to landscaping to screening and everything else, to make sure that it does blend in better with the community. And realistically, I think that it will bring up the housing values as housing developers across the country want our facilities in their neighborhoods, because that's a draw for young parents and working families.
And then one more question. You had mentioned, one of the questions that was raised about was just how often the kids are going to be out. And I know you said in comments, I think it was like kids were only allowed outside between 10 and 2, which I was just curious about that. That seemed sort of.
They're half-hour segments. With the childcare, they're different age groups, so there can only be so many out at a time. And so, like for infants, it is the smaller playground on the left. That's infant only. They're out there for 15, 20 minutes. Again, when I say 10 to 2, whether it's nap time or playtime, it's some section within the middle of the day. And that's same with the older children. And so that would be the extent. And again, it's not for the full 4 hours at all, by any means. Realistically, it's no more than a half hour, hour at the maximum. But they do try to get it about the same time, and then they split them up. And that's why our playground is segmented into the different age groups. Again, it comes down to the operations. You can't have larger students with smaller students in certain occasions, and that's why the infants are completely separate. But yeah, so it is very limited play time. It is not an all-day event.
Okay. And I would say that I actually support kids being outside for longer periods of time. I would say it'd be fine from 9 to 6. I think the sound of children playing is a complementary use near neighborhoods, especially with proximity of the elementary and the middle school there. I think the sounds of the parents pulling into Clague Middle School is more detrimental. And obviously, this is going to increase that sort of traffic as well. So that is certainly a reasonable concern. But I don't see the sound of children playing to be something we should be concerned with. So I think that's all.
Okay.
Thank you. If you can, I have just a couple questions for
Yeah,
you.
absolutely.
You were mentioning the ages of the children what are the age groups that the facility will cater to?
It goes from 6 weeks up to 4 or 5 years old. Essentially, it's infants, toddlers, up to pre-K.
Pre-K.
And so right before kindergarten.
Okay, so it won't operate as a after-school program for the elementary school here?
That's up to the demand of the community typically. Some communities need after-school programs, and so they'll bus kids in to utilize the facility. But if you have after-school programs that are at the elementary school or the middle school, then no, there won't be.
Yeah, okay. That was one question. And then you'd mentioned hours of operation generally are 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., Monday through Friday?
Yes.
Is it open on Saturday or Sunday?
No.
Okay, so no, there would be no one there other than, I don't know if you would have anyone for maintenance or security or anything that would be in the building and on the weekends?
No, not unless it comes down to an actual maintenance item or call. So other than that, no. And that'd be something like we were talking about with the tree. That'd probably be the only example I can think of where you definitely don't want a chainsaw or anything out there when there's children. So.
Right, okay. All right. I believe that's all the questions I had for you, sir, so thank you very much. Had a couple other comments I wanted to make to discussion with the commission, trying to focus more on the special exception use. And then I guess a question for Mr. Kowalski. The existing church that's there is also a special exception use as a church in a residential, is it not?
Correct. Although they actually didn't have one because it predated the code, it's been there long enough. But it is, if they were to establish it today, it would need a special exception use, that's correct.
Okay.
All churches do.
And do we have other incidents in the city where we have daycare centers in residential zones that have gotten special exception uses? Is this a unique
Yes.
situation or no?
Actually, I've personally dealt with, thank you, sorry. Mic was off. Yes, I mean, that's, most of them we have are actually in located in residential areas, either on the fringe on some main roads like West Stadium or Duvarn, but most of them are directly adjacent to residential areas.
Okay. Yeah, the ones I'm familiar with, for Gretchen's house, for instance, I know that they are located close to residential communities. I didn't know if they were actually in residential zones, though.
Yes, they actually, except for the one I know that was on West Stadium, that was actually zoned office.
Okay.
But the other ones, the two I'm most familiar with, were both zoned R1C.
So in this case, we're not setting a precedent here in terms of a use in the city that's
I don't think so, no.
okay. Just wanted to understand that. I think, from my perspective, well, the other issue brought up about noise, I certainly understand residents wanting to keep their neighborhood quiet, but with the hours of operation, it certainly would seem that it would be well within the city's noise limits. And again, children playing, I don't think that as being the kind of noise that, for most people, causes a problem. The traffic seems to be the biggest potential nuisance of this. However, I also look at the location of the site relative to both residential and the schools, and it does seem to be generally a compatible use with both of those. So I think from my perspective, on the special exception use, I would lean more towards supporting this as a special exception use. It seems like we've talked through a lot of the site plan issues that have been on here. Mr. Kowalski, was there anything noted? I didn't see anything in the staff report, but anything on the traffic? The explanation by the petitioner seems reasonable to me, or common sense, that for this kind of facility, from the days when I used to drop my daughter off at daycare and pick her up, but, it was never the same kind of thing of everyone having to be there at one time or leave at one time, but I didn't know if there was any other input from the city's traffic engineer on the report.
Yes, there was some discussion. I mean, one of the concerns that was brought up was exactly regarding the potential conflict with school traffic. But again, through the, working with traffic engineers, as well as the traffic study that was provided by the petitioner, but even separate than that, our traffic engineer felt pretty confident that because, again, schools have a focused start time, and most likely this is going, as was mentioned by the petitioner, but also just in general, there's kind of a 3-hour range of where, so we felt pretty confident that given it's not all starting at 8:05 or whatever time the school may be, as well as pickups and drop-offs are pretty dispersed timing. And the hope was also that, as was identified by the commission, is that this is an area that, for whatever reason, obviously is growing and population-wise, and it's on a major bike route as well as a transportation route. So the idea was hopefully that will be able to be taken advantage of by many people that are just typically driving by this site on a regular basis anyway. It may not make it necessarily a destination, but it'll pick up people on the way. So that was looked at with the traffic engineer. I don't know if that completely answers your question?
It helps, yeah.
Okay.
That's helpful. I also think it's, based on today, the current site has 63 parking spaces. They're proposing 38, so there is a reduction in imperviousness, I would
Yes.
assume, being proposed, which helps with stormwater, and they are putting in stormwater retention. Is there infiltration associated with that, or is it just merely?
Is there some? There's limited, but I don't think the main basin is infiltration. I think the bioretention islands are the infiltration, aren't they? But I think the main system did not support an infiltration. The main one along Nixon is not infiltration, correct? Yes,
So it's just, that's detention then?
correct. But they do have the bioretention islands in the parking lot that will be acting as somewhat of it, but they did the core sample, or the soil samples as well. to get
Okay.
Soil types.
Okay. All right. Those are kind of my comments. Commissioner Briggs?
Yeah, I just had one more comment I was thinking about that I wanted to, I guess, direct towards the neighborhood regarding maybe your largest concern regarding traffic. I am very sympathetic about that concern. I think that you are right, that it's a nightmare out there, and that the schools are a major driver of that. Unfortunately, I do see that this contributes to that problem. It's certainly adding to it. My sense is that there's a larger community issue that we have to deal with around surrounding each of our schools, and it's beginning to be addressed in our community through Safe Routes to School programming, but it's really a larger issue than that. And it is a public safety issue that you're talking about in terms of children getting hit. But I don't necessarily direct that, I don't think that is entirely the petitioner's problem tonight. And so I understand your concerns about it, and I hope you will continue to push on that issue. I think that's an issue that we need to solve, not just in your neighborhood, but all across the city. So I just wanted to at least express that I share those concerns.
Thank you. Any other commission discussion or questions before we're ready for a vote? Is there some discussion you'd like to share? So we talked about, we decided we would vote on the special exception use and site plan separately. So at first, we will vote on the special exception use, as without that, the site plan is somewhat meaningless. All those in favor of the special exception use as noted, please raise your right hand and say yes.
Yes.
Yes, that is 6 votes, so that passes. All in favor of the motion for the site plan recommendation for the site plan, please raise your right hand and say yes.
Yes.
That also passes 6-0. Thank you very much. Thank you all for your time coming out here today, both petitioner and community.
Okay, then we should talk, we'll follow up in the next couple of days or so regarding the modifications.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So we'll go on to our next item, which is the Flannery annexation and zoning at 2883 Stone School for the city council approval. And we'll start again with the staff report.
Okay, thank you. Again, here's kind of a zoomed-out version, 2883 Stone School Road. Right now, obviously a township parcel. This is an older photo. This is a zoomed-in of it. The house that was on the property, as well as the associated accessory buildings, have been removed. So the site is now clear. And you can see it here on the, obviously on a little bit of a township island there. Petitioner is requesting annexation in R1D zoning, which is similar to the adjacent zoning immediately to the east, as well as to kind of the southwest. And staff is recommending approval. Thank you.
Okay. So I'll open the public hearing on this item. Is there anyone who would like to speak to the commission on this item, the Flannery annexation and zoning? All right, seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing and start by reading the motion. Motion reads as follows. The Ann Arbor City Planning Commission hereby recommends that the mayor and city council approve the Flannery annexation and R1D single-family dwelling district zoning. Can I have someone move this? Commissioner Briggs, and seconded by Commissioner Gibb Randall. Discussion, questions on commission about this one? Commissioner Ackerman.
I hope to one day get a new constituent.
Yes.
So this is politically motivated for you, in other words?
No comment.
Just kidding, of course.
Of course.
Commissioner Briggs,
just for clarification, so if I just want to make sure I'm looking at this right. So this is just one parcel in the midst of township land that's being annexed?
Correct. It's
Okay.
just, it's a larger parcel, but it is just one parcel.
Okay.
Which township is it?
That's south, that'd probably be Pittsfield.
It's Pittsfield.
Yeah.
Another taxpayer.
And this would be an R1D, which is a single-family district.
Correct. That's what adjacent Shady Lane is R1D as well, just directly to the east.
And have we been approached, or are you aware of what the plans of the petitioner are for this site?
Yeah, they've actually, I think, already filed a single-family building permit, or are trying to. So we don't know that it would be split. I mean, of course, that could be an option, but at this time, the petitioner has indicated that they want to build one house on it.
And then the, part of the requirement would be that they would connect to city
Correct.
sewer and
Yep,
water.
absolutely. That's one of the, that's why they're annexing. I mean, they have to annex in order to build the house
Right.
and connect to the utilities.
Right. And there is city utilities out in Stone School,
Yes.
correct? Commissioner Ackerman?
And I'll note that we changed our tappage fee schedule to encourage more single-family houses, so we've
Yes.
dispersed costs to larger developments to save single-family homeowners some money when they're tapping into the system.
Great, that'll make single-family residents happier and developers less happy, but so be it. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor of the motion as read, please say yes.
Yes.
That appeared to be everyone. Any opposed? No, all in favor. That passes unanimously again.
Okay.
Thank you all. We have now, item 11 is audience participation. This is another opportunity for members of the audience to address the commission on any item at all. Any item at all for up to 3 minutes. If there's anyone here interested in addressing commission, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Anyone? Okay. You may regret it later. Next item is commission proposed business, and I guess I'm going to take this opportunity, since we still have audience members here, to ask what school they're from and what class. This is your government class that? Okay. Great, well, thank you. We always love having audience members here. Are you all are different class?
Few of them, and we're doing an environmental law class, and we've been talking a lot about zoning and stuff, so you have to attend a meeting and then do like a write on it.
Okay, great, well, thanks for being here.
I encourage you to come to the November 9th city council meeting.
Yeah, the city council meeting on November 9th should be a fun
Use
one.
policy and a lot of it environmental.
Okay. Well, great, thank you for being here tonight. Any other commission proposed business or discussion for tonight? I mean, the petition tonight, the first petition, does put me in mind, especially with Commissioner Briggs' comments about, continually, transportation, traffic issues seem to be one of the top concerns that our residents have in the community, and it's not necessarily within our power to solve that problem, but somehow, perhaps, as we think about planning, if there is master planning work that's done or other work in the community, that we help to try to keep that on the forefront, like we are, I think, to some degree, with transit-oriented development zoning that we're trying to develop, is to try to funnel some of that and encourage public transit, not just single occupant autos or even two people. Commissioner Briggs,
I would just say that in my, looking at different, where these sort of initiatives come from in different cities, planning departments certainly do push certainly more initiatives that would help to drive down single occupancy use vehicles, so, or to help mitigate some of those issues. So Vision Zero planning in Austin came directly out of their planning program and then spread to others. So there's no reason planning department can't take on that stuff, except for maybe staff resources. That's small detail.
Well, I'm acting manager now, I'll make it happen.
Awesome.
Yep. Sounds good.
But I do think it's a, you know, it's an important livability issue for folks in the
Yeah.
community. You know, and even though I think many of you believe that greater density in our city within reason will help to make a more sustainable, more livable city over time, you know, in that growth time, it's also before maybe the more robust transit options develop.
Right.
It's still frustrating for people, and that's, I'm sure, part of what we hear from people every week. Any other commission business? All right. The next item is item 13, adjournment. All in favor? Yes? Okay, we are adjourned.